you everyone for joining me this afternoon to talk about a topic that is probably near and dear to your heart, and that is one of retaining your talent during this time that we are calling the Great Resignation. I am Lauri Dahlberg, and I am the Senior Manager in our HR consulting practice. I've been with Eide for 19 years now and have held various roles within our HR department, but have been part of our consulting practice for the past 5 years and spend my time helping clients deal with their HR matters. So I'm really excited to be talking with you today and look forward to kind of sharing my thoughts and knowledge on this topic that, as I mentioned, is near and dear to your hearts. Before we jump into the content, I want to make sure we understand why we're here. And in order to do so, we kind of have to look at some turnover statistics. Right now, unemployment across the nation is at 4%, and that equates to about 6.5 million people. Now, 2.3 million people have been filing for unemployment insurance, which leaves 4.2 million people who are not working and could be, or are within the age demographic that we typically find our workforce, who have not filed. So we're kind of wondering, what are those individuals doing? And what we have found is that over the last several months, we have employees leaving the workforce in a huge movement that we are calling the Great Resignation. Now, if you're anything like me, you're wondering, what the heck does that even mean? And what we have found in doing our research is these individuals who are leaving the workforce are doing so because they're reevaluating and reassessing what their priorities are. Certainly, COVID has had a tremendous impact on a number of different careers and different professions out there. Some of them were laid off or were furloughed because their businesses closed down. And during that time when they weren't working, they started reevaluating and reassessing what their priorities were and taking a look at what potential options they might have. We have some individuals who have never returned back to the workforce, and they're either living off of savings. Some of them have moved home to live with parents, and they're figuring out what they want to do, and they're taking the time to do that. They're not just going out there and finding a job like we had been experiencing previously. But when we have this Great Resignation, we're kind of wondering, where the heck are all these people going? Right? And one of the responses to that is they're going to other companies that maybe meet their needs, either their need to work from home, their need to fulfill some sort of moral obligation. As they're reassessing and reevaluating their needs, they might find that they're putting values on other things that maybe weren't as important to them previously, but are now. And they're finding other companies that can meet those needs. And the truth of the matter is, there are a lot of people who left the workforce and chose to retire early. Maybe they had planned on working until they were in their 60s or beyond, and they just decided that, you know what, it's not worth it for me to go back to the workforce, whether it was due to COVID scares, fear of their own health, different things of that nature. So they really have decided to just retire and leave the workforce entirely. All right, so what does that mean for you? Well, it means that we have fewer individuals who actually want to return to the workforce, right? So there are currently 6.4 million job postings out there on Indeed across the nation, and 191,372 of those job postings reference nonprofit in their job title. So it's not even that those jobs are part of the nonprofit industry. That's the number of jobs that actually reference nonprofit in the job title, which means that people have a lot of options. And what that means as an employer is that there are employees who are less willing to tolerate either a poor work environment or a job that they dislike. And they are also able to make demands that they previously weren't willing to make. There are a lot of employees who now want to work flexible work schedules. They might be expecting more compensation. They may expect a better like work-life balance or work environment that they may not have pressed on before. But because there are so many options out there, they are choosing to voice their opinions for those. And one of the primary things that we are seeing is that if an employee wants to work remotely, work from anywhere, because remote work became so popular and actually something that could be done once COVID hit, if a company is not as flexible with regards to allowing employees to work from wherever they want to work from, then those employees are finding somewhere else to work who will provide that for them. All right, what that leaves us with is something that we call the war for talent. And that is an increasingly competitive landscape for recruiting and retaining talented employees. And so our solution to fighting this war for talent is to make sure that you're operating with a mindset that actually emphasizes the importance of your talent or your employees to the success of your organization. And as an organization, one of the primary things that you will need to do is that you have to start thinking about retention as a core strategic initiative. It can no longer just be something that is passed off onto your executive assistant or your HR department or just someone who has a passion for it. It can't just be shoved off onto them. It actually has to become a strategic initiative that the entire organization is focused on. And in order to be successful with it, you need to put in place solid practices that will help you retain the talent that you probably spend a lot of time and effort finding and recruiting to join your organization. All right, so retention. The things that we're going to talk about today are just some of the retention tactics that you can put in place in order to keep the employees that you currently have. It's all going to start with recruitment and making sure that recruitment is a priority within your organization and not just something that the people who have time to do it. Like Bob is available to do an interview, so Bob is selected to do the interview that day. Recruitment has to become a priority and a core strategic initiative. You also will want to make sure that you're creating onboarding or orientation processes that employees actually enjoy going through. It's often called information overload day because they get so much information. You want to make sure that you have a very thought out and purposeful onboarding and orientation process so that an employee recognizes on day one that they made the right decision to join your organization. Another retention tactic is to make sure that you're paying employees fairly for the job that they are doing. You also can choose your people managers wisely and allow employees to grow from mentor or coaching relationships. Another retention tactic is providing employees with ongoing training and skill development opportunities. We've already talked a little bit about flexibility and the importance of today's worker, the importance they place on flexibility in the workplace. That is definitely a retention tactic. And another one is to provide wellness benefits to address physical, emotional, and financial needs. A well-rounded package of wellness. And then finally, creating a work environment that employees want to be part of can also be seen as a key retention tactic. And these are the topics that we're actually going to dive into a little bit deeper here today. All right, so recruitment as a core strategic initiative. This is one that is near and dear to my heart. In my 31 years within my human resources career, I have spent a majority of that time involved in recruitment. And so it's a passion of mine. It's something that I really enjoy and think that is a very strong retention tactic. So why is recruitment so important with regards to retention? Well, the simple answer to that is that if you are not hiring the right people to begin with, it's going to be very, very difficult to retain them. So you want to make sure that as you are looking at hiring new staff to come on board, that you're hiring folks who actually will be a good fit for your organization, can actually do the job that you're asking them to do, and really can add value to help your organization move forward. So with that, in thinking of recruitment as a primary function, what you are doing is you are placing importance on recruitment as a key responsibility rather than as an afterthought or something that just needs to be handled whenever it comes up. So to establish a recruitment process, you're going to want to make sure that you include some necessary steps in order to formalize your process, make it consistent, and ensure that it not only mitigates risk from an employment law perspective, but also that you are finding, as I mentioned previously, the right people for your organization. So it all starts with identifying the need. You know, you might have somebody who resigns and decides to leave your company. That identifies a need. Or you may have growth opportunities going on that you need to hire someone to fill. You have to identify what your need is. And when you look at your need, it's not just, hey, Bob just left, so I need to replace Bob. What was Bob's job? And we're just going to fill that. It's taking the time to actually think about, okay, how has the job evolved? In looking at your team, what are some of your team's strengths? What are some of their weaknesses or areas for improvement? What are some tasks that are going unfulfilled because you don't have someone with the proper skill set or knowledge or expertise? What type of person could you hire in order to make your team the best team it possibly can be moving forward? So identifying the need is really, really crucial, because if you don't understand what it is that you're looking for to make your team the best it can be, you are never going to find it through a recruitment process. So identifying the need is critical. Next comes creating an interesting job posting. Most organizations will just take a job description and they'll throw that out there onto Indeed or any of the other job boards. What we see works better is if you actually take the time to not only look at the job description, but then maybe reword some things and explain the job in a format that differs from a standard job description and makes it more appealing. You want someone to come work for your organization. So in your job posting, you should talk about the really cool types of things that somebody in that position gets to do on a regular basis or on a daily basis. You also want to include some information about your company, maybe the benefits, the work environment, the type of work that you do within your communities. What types of things would make somebody want to not only apply for this job, but apply for your company? Why you and why this job, as opposed to several of the other options that are out there for the candidate? So create an interesting job posting, something that someone would actually want to apply for. You then want to take a look at the talent within your network. It could be individuals within your own team, individuals within your company, or it could be people who you are linked with through various professional associations or other types of organizations that you're involved with. When you're looking for talent within your network, you are asking your employees to maybe refer individuals that they might know, either from school or from previous positions. You are asking, you're reaching out on your LinkedIn network. You're kind of putting it out there. And we call this low-hanging fruit, right? Somebody within your network either would be a good fit for this job or may know someone who's a good fit for this job. It is far easier to try and put the word out there to the people that you know and get their assistance with spreading your desire to hire someone, and than it is to just try and source candidates on your own or find candidates on your own. The days of posting jobs and just praying that somebody's going to come along who's a perfect fit, those days have kind of gone to the wayside. So you definitely want to make sure that you're utilizing your network as an initial starting point. You then want to make sure you're spreading the word regarding your position. If you utilize social media for any of your other business practices, you want to make sure that you're utilizing social media for posting your position or posting your desire to hire someone. It can be something as simple as putting out there on LinkedIn or on Facebook or Twitter, hey, we're looking for our next great sales associate, and have a link to the position description. Something simple, just get the word out there. You always want to make sure that you are keeping diversity in mind. There are a number of fabulous diversity websites out there and diversity organizations where you can post positions. Anytime you are thinking about hiring for your team, you want to make sure that you are looking at creating a more diverse work environment, a more diverse team, so that you can get opposing opinions or approaches to things, new ways of thinking, fresh ideas. Make sure that you are always keeping diversity in mind. When your candidates start to apply, you have to make sure that you respond quickly. Time kills all deals, especially in recruitment. If someone is taking the time to either apply for your position or respond to your inquiry as to whether or not they might be interested, chances are highly likely there are 10 to 50 other organizations that are reaching out to this. You need to make sure that you follow up with them quickly. If you get a resume for someone, or if your team forwards on a candidate that it seems to be a good fit, make sure that if you like that person, you get back in touch with them immediately to either schedule an interview or to have a further conversation about the opportunity that you have. If you wait even a few days, chances are highly likely that candidate has been swooped up by someone else, could be your competitor, and you want to make sure that you are not missing out on great candidates by not responding in a timely manner. You also want to make sure that you are consistent with the questions that you ask, consistent with the information that you share. Standard interview questions are a must when it comes to interviewing candidates to ensure that you are comparing apples to apples and not apples to tacos, right? You want to make sure that you're asking the same questions of every single candidate as it relates to the position. Certainly, based on a candidate's response or based on their resume or expertise, you may ask some additional questions based on that information that you've gathered, but you do want to make sure that you start with a core list of questions that you're asking every candidate. And with regards to the information that's shared, you want to make sure that everybody who's involved in the interview process has something that they can talk with the candidate about, so that the candidate can find out more about what is the job like, what kind of performance management process do you have here, what are the benefits, what types of fun activities does the organization do with its employees, what kinds of community service activities are involved, what kind of career progression is there. Make sure that the people who are involved in the interview actually have specific topics that they can cover with the candidate, so the candidate leaves the interview knowing a lot more about your organization and the position, and is in a better position to make a decision if you do extend an offer. You also want to make sure in the interview that you get the information that you need, and certainly standard interview questions can help with this. You can't go into an interview just saying, so tell me something about yourself. That is not going to help you determine if that person is truly going to be able to do the job. You may find out a lot of information about them that is helpful in making that decision, but you want to make sure that you're asking thoughtful questions to determine, does this person have the skills, the expertise, and the type of soft skills that we're looking for someone in this particular role. If a candidate does not answer your question or dances around your question with a perfect world scenario response, rephrase the question. Make sure that you get the answers to all of the questions that you have so that you can make an informed decision regarding the individual. And then finally, you have to make a decision, and you have to do so relatively quickly. As I mentioned, people have options out there in the world now, and we want to make sure that if you have an interest in somebody, that you follow up with them relatively quickly to let them know. On the same token, if you determine that someone is not qualified for your position, that you follow up with them and let them know that as well. With regards to making recruitment kind of a core retention tactic, one of the ways that you can do that is to ensure that your recruitment process involves an interview that is well thought out and is prepared for. There should never be a scenario where a candidate shows up for an interview and you're running through the halls looking for someone to just talk to the person. That you throw a resume in front of their face and say, hey, we've got someone in the conference room who's interviewing for our receptionist position. why don't you go talk to them? You should identify a specific team of individuals who are involved in interviews, either for all the positions, if you're in a smaller organization, or at least for a department. So the same individuals should be interviewing candidates for a particular role. You're going to identify those standard interview questions. And in preparation for the interviewer should know what those standard interview questions are in case they need to rephrase them because the candidate is not responding with a complete answer. And you want to make sure that each interviewer knows what information they should share during the interview. By doing just these two simple things, you ensure that not only are you finding out information about the candidate so you can make a decision, but you're also assured with the fact that the candidate now has information that they need in order to make an informed decision as to whether or not they want to join your organization. If you don't do these two things, you're going to have interviews where all of the interviews are asking the same questions. Tell me a little something about yourself. What's your strength? What's your weakness? And they're asked that same question by every single interviewer. So you never learn whether they have the technical skills to do the job, how they would handle conflict in the workplace, if they're available to work the work schedule that you have. Instead, you're just going to find out the same information because every interviewer has asked the same questions. Not only that, you also don't want the candidate leaving there only knowing what the benefits are. And they know nothing about what the performance management process is like, what career progression is like, what the company's strategic goals are, what types of community service activities you do. They're just leaving with one piece of information, which is not enough for them to make a decision. This is another key initiative, and I will say that this is probably my number one thing that I truly believe when it comes to the interview process is a must-have, and that is to ensure that you are identifying key individuals within your organization to include in the resume, in the interview. And at a minimum, you should involve the following types of individuals in your interviews for your positions. Number one, you should have someone involved in the interview of candidates who would be at a peer level to the individual being hired. Their role may not be to determine whether or not the person has the technical skills. Their role may be just to share information and to ask some common questions, like talk with me about what you're looking for in your next opportunity. Why have you decided to apply for a position? They can ask some basic questions, but having that peer level interviewer in the interview is so key because that is somebody that your candidate needs to relate to on a perspective of working side by side with them every single day. You want your candidate to have that opportunity to talk with somebody that they might work with on a daily basis. They might ask them questions that they may not feel comfortable asking a more senior level individual within the organization. So having somebody at that peer level is really important. Next, you want to make sure you have a supervisor or a manager involved in the interview. And that would be somebody that the candidate will actually receive work direction from or might have performance evaluations with. That supervisor or manager may be the person who talks to the candidate about what the performance management process is like or what the expectations are of employees so that they can share that component of it with the candidate. A lot of organizations have a senior manager or an executive who wants to be involved in every interview, and that's great. And if you do have somebody in that role, that's going to be someone that the candidate sees is in charge or who sets the strategic path for the organization. And that can be really, really important. During the interview, that individual may want to share what the strategic plan is, the growth plan, or what types of things the organization wants to accomplish. And it is so crucial for candidates to make connections with all of these different individuals so that they can see whether or not this is a company they want to be part of. They want to be able to picture themselves working side by side with this person, taking work direction from this person, or receiving information with regards to the company's strategic plans, the person that they could get behind when it comes to fulfilling the organization's needs. if they can see that well-rounded picture, it oftentimes will make it a lot easier for them to determine, yeah, this is a place that I want to be part of, because I can picture myself working with all of those individuals. When you are unable to fill your positions, which there are a lot of organizations out there who have had full-time positions available for a very long time and cannot find people to fill those spots, it may be time to look at a contingency workforce. Going to a temp agency and trying to find individuals who can just fill in with the day-to-day so that you can keep the organization moving forward while you search for individuals who could potentially be your long-term fits. With temp agencies, you want to make sure that you are finding contingency agencies or temp agencies who fit with what your organization does. You want to make sure that you feel comfortable with those folks, that they understand who you are, what your organization is trying to accomplish, and what types of people are traditionally successful in your organization, so they can kind of find those contingency workers who can be somebody who hits the ground running. With those contingency agencies, you're going to share details regarding your organization and your needs. You are going to schedule contingency workforces to maximize your financial investment. So find out what those crucial spots are where stuff just is not getting done, and hire contingency workers to fill those needs until you can find someone more long-term. And you need to treat that contingency workforce really, really well, so that when you have needs later down the road, those folks want to come back and work for you. So onboarding. Onboarding is the time between when an offer is accepted and an individual actually starts with your organization. And as I was just talking to, there is some time that is needed for these things. And so the basics that should be set up for any employee who starts with you before they actually come in and start are things like setting up their company contact. So email addresses, phone numbers, things of that nature. Establishing a workspace, getting equipment set up for them, whether it's a computer or it is access to different softwares that they might use as part of their job, access to external types of resources that might be crucial for their job. Parking passes, if you have a parking facility and they need a parking pass or a building access key or card. Those things take a little bit of time to get set up. Business cards, I'm going to be honest with you. It's probably been 2 years since I've needed a business card because I just don't get out face to face with folks. But if they're in a key role where business cards are essential as part of their function, you want to make sure that you have those business cards ready for them on day one. You also want to make sure that there's proper time needed to add them to distribution lists or add them to regular department or company meetings. You want to make sure that you have time to put together their training agenda and confirm that individuals responsible for providing training are available when that person starts. And then a nice touch is to always get some sort of company logo wear, whether it's a shirt, a sweatshirt, a hat, a coffee mug, whatever. Just have some time to put a package together that welcomes them to the organization. And some of these things, as I mentioned, take some time. You may want to check with your IT department. They usually are the ones who require a little bit more time for setup and obtaining equipment. So find out how long they need in order to set up a new hire, and then maybe establish your onboarding process based on that timeline. During onboarding, you also want to make sure that you are communicating with your new hires regularly until they start. For some people, it's usually within 2 weeks, right? Somebody accepts a job, they give their 2-week notice, they start. If you are in the process of hiring interns, though, and you're doing your on-campus interviewing in the fall for candidates who graduate that following May, that's a longer time frame, and it's hard to stay in touch with individuals that you hired months prior, but it is so crucial that you do so. Out of sight, out of mind does not retain new hires. So you will want to make sure that you put some sort of calendar reminder occasionally so that you reach out to that individual, Stay engaged with them, meet them for lunch, meet them for breakfast. If they're still in school, send them care packages around finals time. Let them know that you're still thinking about them, that you're super excited for them to join your organization, even though their start date may be a ways out there. With regards to orientation, it is so crucial that you hold an actual orientation with all of your new hires to cover important information. And some of that information is to mitigate risk for you as the employer. So things like sharing the employee handbook would be really important. Gathering required forms like the Form I-9, their W-4, their direct deposit form, confidentiality agreements, or other types of employment agreements, getting all the paperwork signed. Those are the things that mitigate risk for your organization and are crucial during orientation. But then there are some other things that are more important to the employee. Things like finding out about their benefits. It's really, really important for employees to know what are the benefits that are offered, what's the enrollment process, when do they have to have that information turned in by, and sharing that information with them on day one really is beneficial. Doing a tour and providing introductions to members of the team is really important on day one. Helping them figure out at least where their workstation and where the bathroom and where the break room are is critical. You want to make sure that you point those things out. And if you have an office that is larger, where an employee could potentially kind of lose track of where they sit because it's a sea of cubicles, do something like ordering some welcome balloons. So the balloons stick up out of their cubicle. And then as they're returning from the break room, they can just go to where the balloons are because they're a new hire and the balloons are only for new hires. Little things like that can really, really help. Doing the tour and introductions on that day one is also a great way to show them your workspace and to let them meet other people that they might be working with. If you have the opportunity, if they're going to be part of a team, set up lunch with the team to ensure that they get to meet those individuals that they're going to be working with side by side on that first day. We already talked about paperwork. You want to make sure that you allow some time for workstation setup. So show them where the office supplies are and give them like half an hour to an hour to actually set up their workstation the way that they like it. It's a good idea within your orientation period, which could extend beyond day one, to establish expectations. Let them know what's expected of them. Maybe cover the performance management process and let them know how their performance is evaluated and when their performance will be evaluated. Identify a go-to person. This could be a buddy. Here at Eide Bailey, they're called Eide guides. It's somebody usually at their peer level or maybe a level above who they can go to with questions, because trust me, after orientation, they're going to have questions. Somebody may cover with them how to do an expense report. They may not have an expense report for 2.5 months. And in 2.5 months, when they have one, they can go to their go-to person to ask questions. You'll also want to make sure that you've established position-specific training, so hands-on training on software, processes, different tools and resources, some inside knowledge on people that they might be working with and best approaches. Give them position-specific training. And then if your company has company training, legally required training on things like HIPAA, or if you're in an industry that has other legally required training, you want to make sure that you get that all set up as part of orientation. Again, orientation day is information overload day. So make sure that you let the candidate know or the new hire know that you are there to answer their questions down the road, or let them know who their go-to person is for those types of questions. And keep in mind that onboarding and orientation helps solidify a candidate's decision with regards to joining your organization. So if you have a very organized onboarding and orientation process, it's going to make the new hire feel like you are an organized company, that you were well prepared for them, and that's how things are going to be moving forward. If you just kind of piecemeal it, throw it together, that's going to be their first impression of your company. And if it is a very disorganized orientation process, they may question whether they made the correct decision leaving their previous employer and coming to join you, or selecting you over another company. And I've seen it time and time again. After day one, they could decide to go back to their former employer if they feel like they've made a mistake. So make sure that you put time and effort into your onboarding and orientation process, just to make sure that that new hire feels comfortable on that first day and is rest assured they made the right decision joining your organization. The next retention tactic is pay a fair wage. And boy, this has changed over the years. Right now, I am going to be very, very honest. Wages are completely overinflated, but it is what it is. We are all having to deal with that fact. And so making sure that you are paying a fair wage is extremely important. And when addressing pay with regards to retention, it is important to acknowledge that pay is at the heart of an employee's basic needs. They may be looking for a great work environment or opportunities, but the fact of the matter is they need money in their bank account to pay for bills and things that they have going on in their life. Keep in mind that new college grads today, on average, need to earn about $50,000 a year to start, because they are factoring in the fact that the average new college grad starts their career with $37,000 worth of student debt. We can agree to disagree with regards to whose responsibility it is based on the school that somebody chooses, but these are the facts. And when a new college grad leaves school and has debt, money is on their mind. And so the average new college grad is earning $50,000, and that's just something to keep in mind. The other thing to keep in mind is pay equity laws, and they do require that you pay for the job responsibilities being performed. You cannot consider race, gender, or other factors that are protected by EEO, and you should not be considering what their current employer or their former employers were paying them for their job, because they may have been underpaid in those organizations, and joining your organization, they should be paid for the job that they are performing. It shouldn't be based on what they were making before. Otherwise, you're compressing the pay inequities, and it can cause some issues. So if your practice has been to ask someone what they currently are making and then basing your compensation on that information, thinking, oh, hey, if we offer them $5,000 more to do the job, that'd be great, and it's $10,000 less than what we were planning on paying for the job, that's not a good practice. You should be paying for the job responsibilities that are being performed. Compensation ranges do need to be adjusted to account for inflation, and currently they're saying that's around 3%. It's hard to say with wages increasing the way that they are right now, but all of the research that I did says that the standard 3% for everyone is what should be implemented. So if you're looking at doing across the board increases, it's 3%. If you have very strong performers, you're going to want to increase their comp a little bit more than that. And you should be reviewing compensation regularly to ensure that you're paying fairly for the industry that you're in, for the geographic market where the employee resides, and also for their specific position. Again, with contingency workers, you want to make sure that if you are hiring a contingency workforce, that there is a large markup for those employees, but you have to factor in what you're paying for really is the fact that there is a super high demand for individuals to fulfill a role that has gone vacant for you. It could be a difficult to find skill set. You could be paying a premium because it's somebody who is available to work on a contingency basis, and you're paying for the intermittent nature of the job versus that job stability, benefits, all of those things. Not to mention there's a lot of administrative costs for the agency that they work for. So typically the agency, the contingency agency, is paying for benefits, taxes, and then they have a markup for a service fee. But you have to realize that while it may be really, really expensive, there may be times when it is necessary. And that certainly is the case right now, for sure, within our healthcare industries, hiring contingency workers. They are having to fill in for some of the gaps. They also are filling in so that some of the longer term employees, the full-time employees, can actually take a break, go on vacation, take some time away. That's when contingency workers can often be helpful as well. All right, the next retention tactic is choose people managers wisely. In a normal environment, who do you typically promote into a management level role? Well, it's usually your top performer, right? Somebody's doing great. The next logical step is supervisor or manager. But who should you be promoting into a management level role? It should be your top performer who has people management skills. And in some cases, they're just not the same person. There are a lot of really great performers who do not have people management skills. They don't have the interest in developing those skills. They're not people. And you want to make sure that if you are moving somebody into a people management role, that they actually have the skills to manage other people, okay? So don't penalize your staff by giving them a manager who doesn't have the right skills or who doesn't have the right demeanor or aptitude to develop those skills. Perhaps create a different career path for those top performers. Maybe it's a more technical path, where they can grow their skills that way, and they don't necessarily have to manage or supervise other people. When you do promote individuals into supervisory or manager level positions, you want to make sure you do give them that training. Let them know what's now expected of them. Let them know the processes. Get them some people management training so they understand how to deal with conflict situations, whether it's two employees who are having conflicts with one another or a performance issue. Help them, guide them, and get them to the right steps so that they can be effective in that role. You also want to empower your managers by keeping them up to date with company strategic initiatives, goals, processes, and allow them to be the ones to share it with their team. The message on updates with regards to some of these things, sometimes it makes sense for the highest level in the organization to share that info, but in many cases, the individuals at the lower levels of your organization will receive the information better and may even respond to it differently if it's coming from their direct supervisor or manager. So allow those individuals in those supervisor and manager level positions to share that type of information. Also, let your managers and supervisors know what types of things they can make decisions on rather than constantly having to go all the way up the chain of command, right? So if it's things like vacation requests or processes for following different departmental guidelines, let those supervisors and managers make some of those key decisions. It empowers them and it puts them in a position where the individuals that they're supposed to be supervising and managing actually will go to them and see them as a supervisor or manager. In continuing with this, providing training and mentoring opportunities to all levels of staff is a great retention tactic, right? So if there are new processes, train your people. Give them the skills that they need in order to be successful in the job. Don't just assume that everybody understands how to do something, the proper approach. You want to make sure that you're training individuals. And if you can identify some people who, like I was saying earlier, are very strong on the technical side, maybe you have some strong performers who are not people manager type, but they are good at their job and can mentor or be somebody that these employees can ask questions of, that oftentimes can fulfill the one employee, the top performer's need for advancement, but it also allows employees to feel more comfortable going to somebody who they see more at their level. Allow your top performers to show new employees the ropes, allow them to be part of the training process, the orientation process, and be looking for employees who are struggling. And rather than waiting for them to completely fail or wait until the next performance evaluation to let them know they've done something wrong, work with them and try and get them back on the track. It is far easier to correct behavior and get people on the right track than it is to let them go off the track and then try and find a replacement for them. So coaching and mentoring create growth opportunities for top performers. It also allows employees to coach and mentor and be mentored, which can develop some of those people skills and prepare them for future opportunities as supervisors or people managers. And the other thing that this allows is it allows employees to interact with one another in positive manners. So the mentoring and the coaching can be seen as a positive. And anytime employees and mentors or employees and supervisors are allowed to interact with one another better or more often, it creates camaraderie. And it is far more difficult for an employee to leave a group of people that they really like than it is to leave a group of people that they just don't like at all. So building camaraderie is a really important retention tactic. Flexibility in the workplace is the next retention tactic we're going to talk about. And it is super important to understand that flexibility doesn't just include working remotely, although that is certainly one big component of it. And COVID showed many of us that we are able to do core functions of our jobs remotely. So my piece on flexibility in the workplace with regards to this is that if the job is suited for remote work, you should allow the employees to work remotely. This is not a one size fits all. It doesn't mean that for healthcare institutions that because doctors, nurses, and many of the individuals who have direct contact with patients who are coming into your facilities, that because those folks can't work remotely, that nobody can, because that's not fair. Well, the problem is people who are in accounting or in some of the more administrative roles, even billing and coding, they don't have to be at the facility in order to do their job. They could do it remotely. And if you're not going to allow them to do it remotely, they will find someone who will. So you need to set it up so that if a position is suited for remote work, you should allow employees to work remotely. And setting them up for success means that you need to be able to provide them access to technology and resources so that they can do the job successfully. And also set expectations up in a work agreement so that you and the employer are on the same page with regards to when they're going to work, how they're going to work, meetings that they need to take part of, equipment and technology that is the company's resources that they will be using and must maintain. So these are all crucial components to a remote work policy. But flexibility also includes creating work-life balance schedules. So making sure that you understand that employees go through various stages of life. Since I've been with Eide Bailly for 19 years, I was engaged, I got married, I had a child, I worked part-time, I worked 4 10-hour days, and then I moved to full-time again when my son entered school. So Eide Bailly was very flexible with me. And consequently, I stayed with Eide Bailly, right? Like it is a retention tactic. You need to ebb and flow and make sure that you are meeting the needs of your employees, because if you don't, they will find someone who will. And flexibility can mean a whole host of different things. Flexibility could mean offering vacation and PTO and actually allowing employees to take it. It can mean creating modified work schedules, whether people can come in later and leave work later, or they come in earlier and leave earlier to accommodate things that they might have going on in their life. It could mean making different shifts, so 10 4-hour shifts 4 days a week, or rotating shifts where they're on 6 days, off 3, figuring out different schedules that might work. It also means you could input some part-time schedules or job sharing, where 2 employees might share the job that 1 full-time employee would fill. And then also having the availability for individuals to take personal leaves or sabbaticals in order to refresh in those circumstances where they are potentially overworked. Providing wellness benefits is one of the last topics, and wellness is actually a combination of mental, physical, spiritual, and financial health. So wellness encompasses all of the areas that are important to individuals. And by offering wellness programs, you are meeting all of the needs of an employee, and which helps them with retention. If you're just doing the financial by paying them and not offering any other types of benefits, an employee will tend to go look for another organization that does fulfill some of these other needs. So with mental wellness, you can offer an employee assistance program, and during times of crisis, engage service providers to address your staff on specific topics. For physical, you can do gym memberships or wellness apps. You can offer healthy snacks instead of Donut Wednesday. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I love Donut Wednesday, but I also love the healthier snacks that are out on a more ongoing basis. For spiritual, you can schedule on-site trainers for yoga or meditation, or allow employees to take time off for religious holidays that are important to them and their beliefs. And then on the financial side, beyond compensation, you can provide a retirement plan for employees to participate in. You can provide short-term or long-term disability insurance plans for employees to participate in. And you can provide them with access to student loan debt payoff tools. Not saying you have to pay off their student loans, but helping them identify resources that can help them with that would go a long ways. Many of the benefits I just talked about are embedded within your existing benefit plans. Your medical plan and your life insurance plans often have a number of different benefits that are embedded in them that you may not even be aware of. Things such as employee assistance programs, teledoc programs where you're calling into a doctor instead of going to a doctor's office. Many gym or fitness membership benefits are found in your medical plans. Legal assistance and travel assistance can be found in life insurance plans. So be sure that you're talking with your insurance brokers to find out if any of these types of wellness benefits already exist in the benefits that you are offering to your employees. All right, so with regards to creating a work environment that employees can be part of, that kind of ties into culture, right? So for employees, the work environment you create is what separates or differentiates you from your competitors. So you want to make sure that you are creating a work environment people want to be part of. You want to demonstrate that you care about your employees. When we were talking about the war for talent and making sure that you're putting an emphasis on the talent part of your organization, that's where this comes into play. Your employees are your greatest asset. Without them, your business will not flourish. So take some time to get to know your employees. A lot of them might be introverted, don't want to share a lot, maybe will only share with 1 or 2 people. That's fine, respect their boundaries. But try to find out as much as you can about your employees to demonstrate that you have a genuine care or concern for them. You should be coordinating fun activities for employees to bring them together, whether it's social activities, happy hours, different types of parties throughout the year, summer picnics, team-based activities like softball, bowling, broomball, basketball, and then commit to giving back to the communities that you operate in. So create community service days as an organization, or allow employees time off to volunteer their time for whatever organization means the most to them. Oh my gosh, I think I did it just on the dot. So in wrap up, if you do those types of things, if it starts with recruitment and making sure that you're recruiting the right people, you onboard them, you pay them fairly, you create opportunities for training and development, make sure that your people managers are well trained, you allow for flexibility, you include wellness, and you create a work environment people want to be a part of, then you should be successful in your retention efforts. Okay, I apologize. I may have gone over a little.
No, you're good. All right,
Okay.
there are a ton of questions that came in. So we're going to do is pull that list, and Lauri will review it, and we will get the answers out to those that submitted those questions. And we just thank everyone so much for attending. Lauri, any final thoughts?
Thank you very much. I'm sorry that we had to go so fast through it. It's a lot to cover. Amy did provide the presentation handouts. So if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me, and have a great day.